waiting to see progress on the prickly page.
All right. Guess we're ready to call the meeting to order. Dean, I'll have you.
Yes,
Call
we'll
roll.
ask Vince to provide us confirmation that our Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been provided for today's meeting.
I confirm that the packet was posted and the required notice of meeting was provided.
So we have provided notice of today's meeting, and I will call roll to confirm that we have a quorum. Board Member Kitchen,
Here.
Board Member Noonan,
Here.
Board Member Romy,
Here.
Chair Martins.
Here.
So we have 4 members present, and that gives us a quorum. And so having met our Open Meeting Act required notice and having a quorum, we can proceed with today's agenda.
Okay, thank you. Next is approval of the minutes from the March 10th, 2022 regular meeting. Does anybody have any corrections or comments or changes? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second it.
Have a second, all right. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Opposed, same sign. So, minutes approved. We're ready for our new business application CC 22-4. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a public hearing today on application CC 22-4. That's been filed by Don Mars of DMA Architects on behalf of First Bank, Kansas. And the request is for approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow the modification of the existing exterior facades of 3 different buildings that are located on the east side of South Santa Fe Avenue between Walnut Street and Mulberry Street. And included with that request is a proposal to modify the existing covered arcade that runs between the buildings addressed as 217 and 225, 227 South Santa Fe. So you can see, compared to some of the cases where we might be looking at a 25-foot storefront, we're looking at quite a bit of frontage. We're looking at a block that's 750 feet long, but the property that's under the ownership of First Bank, Kansas, has a combined street frontage of 422 feet on Santa Fe. So this, compared to some of your other cases, has a much greater impact on the streetscape than a single storefront. So we provided you quite a bit of background, but just for informational purposes, the existing bank building where the request area arrow is pointing, that was constructed in 1959, and then soon thereafter in 1962 there was an addition on the north side that had the drive-through facility being added. And since that time the bank's property holdings have expanded both southward and northward. So they have, as outlined on this map, you have the north end that extends all the way to lot 147, and then all the way south to the north 22 feet of lot 163 feet. And so there are gaps in that frontage, so there's 230 feet of building frontage in that 422 feet of total street frontage. So the first change that occurred was in 2004 when property to the south was acquired, and some of you may not remember the Huff Piano Store that was located there, and there was a fire, and then there was a residential dwelling to the south of that. Those properties were acquired and demolished, and the bank put an ATM machine and an additional parking lot. In 2009, they acquired the property to the north, which became the offices of Advantage Trust Company. And then they have now acquired the property on the north side of the arcade that was formerly used by Sunflower Insurance Group and later Salina Regional Health Center. So we're talking about a total of 9 platted lots, total of 422 feet of total street frontage. We have an office building at the north end that was formerly offices for Salina Regional Health Center. We have the Advantage Trust building, and then we have the main bank building. And then between those, we have a covered arcade that's owned by the city of Salina. This application is proposing exterior modifications to the 3 buildings, and the plan is to give them a uniform look and to remove the metal awning and wraps from the 2 south buildings and to install a new facade that would consist of a stone base and then a combination of brick and ephes on the exterior. And so you have been provided multiple elevation drawings depicting various views, and so you can see that the plan is to try to create a uniform look for the 3 buildings along the entire frontage. In addition to those facade changes, First Bank Kansas is also proposing changes to the pedestrian walkway that's owned by the city of Salina, which connects 5th Street parking lots with Santa Fe. And so I think you have this in your packet as well, but this is a rendering that shows their vision for modifications to this walkway, which is currently a covered arcade that has a roof over the top of it, and there's some photos of that in your packet. So their plan would be to remove the tunnel's concrete floor and the concrete black wall and roof, and then they would install a new sidewalk, new exterior finishes on the side walls of those buildings, and the purpose of removing the cover would be to try to create some natural light in those walls and also to improve the exterior wall surfaces. So upon receipt of this application, staff provided notice to all business and property owners within 200 feet, and an application was scheduled for this afternoon to review this request for conformance with the downtown design guidelines. We've provided you a pretty extensive summary of all the guidelines we think potentially apply to this, but as we look at staff's comments and analysis of this request, I think one of the things we pointed out was because of the amount of frontage, this project will have a significant impact on the appearance of the 200 block of South Santa Fe. None of the buildings here have a long or distinguished history, either architecturally or historically, and so there's no historical features that are being altered or removed. The proposed exterior building materials are masonry materials, and they are comparable and compatible with the predominant building materials in the downtown area. And this project maintains the existing building scale and the rectangular forms. And so in staff's review of this, we do believe that the 3 building facades would be more compatible with the existing buildings on this block and would particularly tie in well with the Homewood Suites Hotel building. As to the arcade plans, this plan would eliminate the weather protection currently provided for pedestrians, but their plan for opening up the arcade has the potential to make this walkway more inviting, more visually appealing, and unlike their 2014 plan, it does maintain the pedestrian connection between 5th Street and Santa Fe Avenue. So we have provided some possible findings for the board's consideration on page 7 of your report, and We think that the addition of the stone base, brick, and ephes will not remove any significant character-defining features on the buildings. There are no intact historical or architectural features that should be preserved. The materials used are more compatible with the surrounding buildings on this block and the surrounding downtown streetscape than the current materials and facades, and it will tie in architecturally with the Homewood Suites building. The colors on the renovated facade are compatible with the surrounding buildings on this block of Santa Fe, and the plan for the existing covered walkway does maintain public access from the rear lots on Fifth Street. So just for your interest, I would point out to you that in your packet, there's a separate supplemental report on the history of the arcade, and it just may be just out of personal interest or downtown history, but the origins of those arcades was started in 1958, and both the arcades and a number of commercial and residential properties surrounding downtown were purchased by the city and cleared to create parking lots, and then the arcades were put in to connect those rear parking lots with Santa Fe. The other thing I would note is that most of the plazas that we have downtown started out as arcades and then got widened out and turned into plazas. And so many of the arcades were 10 feet wide, and most of the plazas are 50 feet wide and open to the air. And so there was a request in 2014, and that request was to close and eliminate the walkway. And now the plan, instead of closing and eliminating it, is to just modify it and to make it open air and change the look and feel of it, but keep it as an open public walkway. So your options, as identified on page 7 and 8 of your report, is that you could approve a certificate of compatibility for the proposed facade changes, including the proposed modifications to the existing covered walkway. You could approve the application in total, subject to any conditions approved by a majority of board members. You could approve a certificate of compatibility for the 3 facade changes to the buildings, but recommend that the existing covered arcade remain unchanged as a covered and closed walkway. You could postpone consideration of this request to a future meeting date, or you could deny the application as presented. Staff's recommendation was be option 2, which would be to approve the request in total, subject to 2 conditions. And the first one is just the standard condition about if there are any significant changes made to what's presented to you today, that those would be presented to staff, and we would bring them back to you if determined to be significant changes. The second condition just reflects the fact that the walkway is city property, and although you might endorse the design changes, because it is city property, there would either have to be some agreement between First Bank and the city of Salina, or a change of ownership of the arcade before those modifications could be carried out. But what you're being asked to look at today is a favorable or unfavorable action on removing the roof and creating it as an open-air walkway. So with that, staff would be open to any questions that you have. We do have representatives of First Bank here to answer any questions you might have. And I would like to compliment the architect we worked with to submit this application. The cover letter that was attached to the application, I think both staff and the board would agree, provided very good information to summarize the proposed changes, and then we think that the renderings provided with the application give the board a pretty good indication of the changes that are being proposed. And they're fairly dramatic changes, but they're changes that move the building facades closer to what you see with the Homewood Suites and other buildings throughout the downtown. So I'd be open to any questions, or if there's any particular drawing or elevation drawing you want to go back to, just let Dustin know.
Okay. Well, Commissioners?
I'm sorry, this is Leslie with Salina Downtown. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry that I was late. The governor was here recognizing Salina Downtown from Main Street, Kansas. But when, I'm sorry if I missed this, Dean, but when was the proposed planning of this construction to start?
That would be something that, it's intended to be a phased project, so I think we'd let representatives of First Bank discuss their phasing and their timing, but the plan is to make phase these facade changes in over time, and I think we'll let either the designer or representatives of First Bank answer that question.
Okay. We'll cover that in just a little bit. We'll see if there's any other questions or comments before we ask the representatives to step forward. From the commissioners? If not, then we'll go ahead and have one of the representatives step forward, and we can, whichever one you'd like to step forward to represent the design. Yes, and state your name and address and all.
Hi, I'm Josh Herman with Hutton.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess you might address first, what's the phase timeline that Leslie was just asking
Yeah,
about?
absolutely. So the Advantage Truss work is actually scheduled, is already, the interior of that's already designed and started to start really any time. But obviously in conjunction with the interior remodel, the exterior facade approval would want to go in conjunction with that. But next priority would be First Bank Kansas itself, the actual bank building, and then jump down to the 217 address. And the goal would be to complete all three facades across all the renderings that you see there by the end of 2023.
Okay. So it'd be covering through this year, all right?
Does that help, Leslie?
She's maybe.
Yes, it did. Sorry, I couldn't get myself unmuted. Sorry about that. Thank
That
you.
help you, Leslie?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any comments you'd like to make in general, or
We hope you like it.
well, I personally will say I think it's a good design, attractive-wise, but I also definitely hope the city will go with the uncovering of that walkway tunnel.
Yeah,
So,
I think
but-
First Bank Kansas has pure intentions. They want to obviously improve not only the face of the bank, but also improve the face of downtown, and
Yes.
for such a large sector of it. And so I think they were real pointed about, helping to steer us in a direction that says, we want this to be common, so there's a high level of quality across all the facades. But you can clearly see some of the differences, so they don't look like twins or triplets going down the block, and there's some repetitive boringness. But I do think the elimination of the walkway, I mean, it improves security, improves light, and improves the faces that the public sees between the parking lot and the downtown street there on Santa Fe.
you know, several people that avoid walking down the walkways.
Yeah,
because
exactly. It would,
those,
I think it would make it more inviting, and then other cities have modeled this type of alleyway or walkway into pop-up art districts. Sometimes, if the city is agreeable, they've strung some lighting at nighttime. They've put tables and chairs throughout. You'll see art kind of installations that change. And so I think to activate that has a lot more potential without the covering there. And so some of those discussions have been made, but haven't really been developed fully yet. But that's a little bit of the mindset of what's been discussed so far, just to give you a little background.
Okay.
I would echo the tunnel arcade. I would love to see that not be there in that area. It would save, we could repurpose the security camera that's over there, and then it also frees up Diane's time as a downtown aesthetic specialist. So that's thrilling to me. Thank you.
How about any comments or questions from Katie or the folks in?
Well, I mean, I do have a comment and just saying thank you for investing in such a huge project downtown. I think it will change that block so significantly in a great way. And just want to thank you for the care that has gone into the aesthetics of the design. I also will echo what everyone else said about the arcade. I really am in support of opening it. The only question I had is in lighting. I didn't see in the renderings any lighting and just wondered how dark that little walkway would be in the middle of winter at 6 o'clock at night. And wondered if you could answer that.
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic question, Katie. First, thanks for the accolades. We helped design it, but Andrew and the team at First Bank is the one who's putting this on, and so the thanks goes to them. But I do think in terms of lighting, that is a great question that has actually been heavily discussed as well. So some of the renderings that you have before you, just so you know, we've tried to design this from not only a daytime perspective, but also a nighttime perspective. And so the large tower element on First Bank is going to be lit at night. And then there's actually a top band of windows that stretches across the entire elevation that would also be backlit at night to give some ambiance to Santa Fe that will help illuminate that pathway there. And then, like I was saying before, the alleyway, if it's approved to remove all of that, some of the techniques that we've seen is even that kind of string light type effect across there. We haven't fully made that decision based on the approval of this, but I do definitely think that illumination will be required just from a safety standpoint. So it won't stay dark.
Okay.
I think, Katie, part of that will be worked out either will be worked out at the city commission level, because there will be some, if it's treated similar to Campbell Plaza, there'll be some agreement between the city commission and First Bank that'll address those things. But there is, at the Campbell Plaza project, they have overhead string lighting to provide lighting there at night. This is different because that's 50 feet wide, but it could be the same concept.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no further discussion, I'll accept a motion.
I was waiting for Katie. I will make a motion that we will go with option 2 with the total acceptances, if there's any major changes, significant changes, that they come back to the board.
I second it.
And did you also want to include the part about the
Physical.
license agreement with the city?
With the arcade?
Arcade, yeah.
Correct, yes.
Arcade, yes, okay. So it's option 2 with the 2 items in the staff recommendation. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign? All right. Motion approved. Thank you.
We'll get you a written summary of today's actions, so you have that for your records. Next steps.
Okay, do we have any administrative items today?
We don't have any administrative items or preliminary discussion items for the board. Under other business, I would just want to let the board know that we do plan to have a meeting on April 28th, and it hasn't, the full cycle hasn't arrived yet, but the way that the sidewalk dining ordinance was structured, that each establishment that has a sidewalk dining area has to renew that annually. And so what we did was we put them, rather than having them all on different clocks, they were all put on for renewal for this year. And so we would have Yaya's, Starbucks, Martinelli's, Barolo Grill, Dagny's Ice Cream would all be coming back for renewal of their sidewalk cafe agreements on the 28th of April.
Okay.
And so I don't think we'd have any other certificate of compatibility applications, but the primary purpose is so that we can report back to you any problems, difficulties, non-conformance, citizen complaints, anything about those dining areas, and just to report back how they've functioned in the prior year. And so part of that renewal is just the fact that we can't permanently turn those areas over to them, because that would then have some property tax implications and other things. So they're on essentially a one-year renewable timetable, and you're charged with reviewing them to make sure that they're operating in conformance with their approved agreements. So we'll just be bringing back a summary of the area, the seating capacity when they were approved, and most of them have just been operating per the plan that was originally approved, and we don't anticipate any changes or dramatic changes, although they would have an opportunity if they wanted to change something to present that to the board. So we wanted to do that, and then we have a guest in the audience that we want to introduce. We have Tyler with Shockey Consulting, who we have retained to help us with design review board cases, and he presented via Zoom last meeting on the Hive signage, and we have Tyler is here working with city staff today, so he wanted to attend a meeting in person, so I just asked Tyler to stand, and everybody can see that he actually exists and it's not just a creature of Zoom.
Okay. Very good.
So we will be continuing to work with Tyler on downtown items, and so he may continue to present via Zoom on a number of items, and he's helping us with some other aspects of our downtown arts and entertainment ordinance. So other than reporting on your next meeting, which will be the 28th of April, that's the only unfinished business or new business staff would have, unless you have anything you want to bring up to us.
I don't believe so. So I guess public forum, anyone from the public that'd like to speak? Good. Anyone on Zoom, Dustin?
Unless Leslie has something to share.
You have anything else you want to share or with the group, Leslie?
No, thank you again for allowing me to be here, and again, sorry for my tardiness. But I will say this, just real quick, those renderings were beautiful.
Okay, thank you for your comments, not thank you for the renderings. I didn't do them. All right, well, if there's no other business or discussion, then I have a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.